Hello, I am Megan Morris Gerzon, and I'm so excited for this next episode of Get Real and Own Person podcast. And today I have Esta Cooke here. Thank you so much for being on. I'll let you introduce yourself in just a second. But we were just catching up a bit because it's been a few years now since we've actually worked together. We met at work, in corporate. And since then, you've become a nutritional coach and you have a whole new kind of calling that you're working on. So I would love to hear what you do, how you want to describe your business, and what you're excited about.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on here, first of all. So I have, going back to what we spoke about and how going back to corporate after having children is really stressful. What happened to me was I had my daughter. I ended up getting postnatal depression, which was a really
Mhm.
hard time.
Yep.
And on that journey, I found nutrition, holistic therapies, anything that was not sort of Western medicine to help me feel better. And I couldn't believe the difference in how that made me feel.
Mm.
And just like the mental clarity it gave me, lifting the brain fog, everyone will know after you've had a baby, the stress of it all. So I had a real keen interest in nutrition. And so after about 6 years it's about 5 years of sort of self-learning, self-studying, I chose to actually go on a course and become a nutritional coach. So that's what I am right now, but I'm currently training to be a functional wellness practitioner.
Nice.
So with that will be sort of testing. So you can do hormonal testing, gut testing, so you can get a real deep understanding of what's going on. But um, a lot of what comes with that is the basics, which is the nutrition. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So I'm just really, really keen to help high performing people feel their best because there's so many things we could be doing from a like a nutritional standpoint to make to be more productive, give us more energy, and just feel good.
Yes, I completely agree. And that is something that I feel like not a lot of people focus on, know about, talk about. It's becoming, more well known today, but I feel like, you and I are both, we met at work, we're high performers. We know a lot of high performers, and oftentimes there's the burnout, there's the lag, the lack of energy, just pushing through. But then you think, oh, I just need another cup of coffee rather than I should focus on my nutrition and other elements. And, I can completely relate as a mom too, who came back to work after my maternity leave, and you're just expected. We were saying many companies aren't quite set up to offer the level of support that actually is needed, because you're expected to jump right back in at 100%, and you're just not only physically recovering, but you have a whole new life and identity, and your brain is just kind of reconfiguring still and buffering. So that's a piece of it too. As women, we understand that, and so that's really cool that you had that experience and you personally got really interested. Um, were you always interested in nutrition, or was this something that you just kind of experimented with or saw other people do? How did you first really get into it?
Um, so I think I was just trying to find whatever I could to feel better. And before I had my daughter, I was into sort of I used to see a PT and I was going to the gym. I used to run quite a lot. But nutrition wasn't really a thing. And I only ever saw food as diet. So like, oh, I'm not eating that because I'm dieting. I never really understood how it can heal your body and how much of a connection it has to pretty much everything that you do. And so
Yes.
um, it's really, really, I would say in the last sort of 2 years, I've had a real deep understanding of the benefits of really focusing on your nutrition above and beyond, just the standard diets that people would typically do.
Yes. In the past few years, I can really relate because I try to eat well, but I'm eating in a way that is healing. Like, I believe that food is medicine,
Yeah.
and that you're eating for the nutritional value to fuel your body, to have enough energy, to be strong. So it's just so important. And I think I love eating, I love food, so why not have
I'm
it
such a
make you
foodie.
feel better, right? And, not just have the junk that feels good in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Once in a while, but, yeah, so that's really great, and, we talked about high performers. Today, the topic is why high performers on running on empty, and so a lot of the time there's folks that look like they're so successful and they're killing it, whether that's at work or just in life in general, but they're actually exhausted and just like running on fumes, don't sleep well. So, what have you seen in terms of like the people you've been working with, or what it really takes to focus more on your energy and stress level and all of that to really perform better?
So I think that um, the thing I come up against the most is that people are real low energy, super fatigued, but they've got so much they have to do, so they have to keep pushing through, and that's all I hear is like, "And I've got to keep going. I've got to keep moving. I've got to keep doing
Yes.
it." And although I don't disagree with the hustle culture, I think it's good if because it's your motivation. But sometimes that can go a little too far one way, and then I think people end up completely burning themselves out because if you imagine you've got a cup and if you're fully into that hustle culture and you're not focusing on what you're having for breakfast, lunch, dinner, you're grabbing a coffee and then you might have a quick pastry on the way into work, you're not getting any of the nutrition that you need for a start. So you're already off there. Um, but then you're probably already super stressed because you're a high performer, right? So your cup is already three-quarters of the way full. And then you're adding into that poor nutrition, um, your home life, your children, if you've got a family and children at home, the bills you've got to pay, like there's so many surrounding factors, and that cut can only fill so much. So I think the one of the best things that people can do is acknowledge how stressed they are and take a look at each individual part of their life. Because I think oftentimes, and I understand why, because your job is what to pay the bills, right? But people just are going so hard at work to get that next big deal, to get the next big client meeting, that everything else is falling down around them and your body keeps tab, right? So your body will hold on to all of that stress that you're feeling anyway.
Mhm.
So if you just take the time, and so you're constantly pushing through, so you're going to be feeling fatigued. You're going to feel like you've got, um, you're waking up in the morning, you've slept, but you've got poor energy when you wake up. And I think um, being able to slow it down, look at nutrition and your stresses, and then sort of um, it's almost like a double-edged sword because you're saying you don't have the time because you're so busy, but if you just manage to sort that part of your life out, the health, the knock-on effect is huge. And
Mhm.
the amount of energy, productivity, the brain fog list, all of those things. So it's like this vicious cycle I think a lot of people get stuck in.
Yes. 1,000,000% true, all of that, and I can relate, and it kind of hits personally because my mom, I was telling you my mom passed, and she had a lot of stress and pushed through with family, life, work, and didn't eat very well, honestly, and so that's a big lesson for me, and I think what you said, like, a lot of people just don't focus on it. They're kind of maybe ignoring or not slowing down enough to realize what is actually going on and how how their body feels and what is affecting them. And like
Mhm.
you said, you hold the stress in your body. So if you're ignoring that, your body is just dealing with so much and it needs actually a lot of care that we often don't give it. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, extremely relatable. And, I also think it's great to care about things and work hard, but if you push yourself to that limit, like what's the point of your life if you're not going to be healthy or you won't even survive, right?
Mhm.
And people just get caught up in kind of like the hustle culture or just the fast paced world we're in. So I think it's extremely important what you said to
Mhm.
just like take a look and you may say I don't have time, but you can make the you can prioritize and make the time to take a look at all the different aspects of your life and where you can make some changes potentially.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
I think the the problem with chronic stress is that is such an issue when it comes to any chronic illness. Chronic stress is
Yes.
oftentimes linked to those chronic illnesses. And so if we don't focus, because we could be doing all the things, you could be eating well, you could be exercising, but if you are stressed, your body will not let go of the extra weight. It won't let go of the extra water weight. And then it's going to be showing up in chronic illnesses. So it's so important to manage that and to take the time to have the recovery. The rest of recovery is so important.
Yes, definitely. Because when your nervous system is overloaded and stress is just like your normal state of being, you actually cannot function to your highest ability. It's just not
Mhm,
possible to give what you want to actually give. And
mhm.
so I'm curious, so when you first kind of shifted into this work, how did you start? Like, what you said you got certified, but then what were the steps you took? Because like, you clearly care about this a lot and you're following something that you believe should be shared with more people. So I'm just curious how that journey looked for you.
Um, so I I think so. I actually, do you mean as in terms of how I started the business?
Yeah. How you
Yeah, yeah.
actually made it a business.
Okay, so I basically have just used Instagram has been like my main focal point.
Nice.
So um, when I first started training, I started posting on there because I wanted to help more people. So it was more of like I guess it was more of a bit of a hobby, just trying to share the knowledge and also feeling so passionate about helping people understand these things because the things I was learning were blowing my mind. Um,
Yeah. Like
and
what?
I was so just the that there's a percentage, it's about 60 to 70% of, or it might even be higher than that, of people in the world have an intolerance to dairy and they don't even know it.
Uh-huh.
And so um, when we're working in clinic with clients, we look at anything that might be an intolerance. So there are like the main ones, which would be like dairy, gluten, and then high histamine food. And just from the information you gain from the client on certain symptoms, you can start linking that back to potential intolerances. So when people are saying that they perhaps have like achy bones, that can be an intolerance and you may not ever link that to an intolerance. So it's just this the small bits of information are just yeah, just and so I wanted to share that. So I was sharing these types of information, low tox living as well. Um, I started going deeper into um, all the toxins, pesticides, so like or
Mhm.
you having organic food over non-organic because of all the
Yes.
chemicals,
Yes.
um, and all of those things. And I just when you put it all together, it's just crazy to it's crazy that people don't know it. Is
Yes.
for me, it was like the mind blowing part. So I just really wanted to share that. So I got on Instagram and then I actually um I actually started working with a business coach because I thought how I've been sharing all this information on here, but how am I going to actually make it a business? Like, how do I transfer from sharing knowledge to now I would like these people to use me as a service? And
Right.
so that was quite a tricky transition. Um, but now I offer the one-to-one coaching, and then I'm just about to launch a membership as well. So
Nice.
yeah,
That's
and the
exciting.
membership, yeah, the membership is for um, people who are like high performers who don't have the time to look at their health. They don't want to learn it. They also don't have the time to do much about it. So what I want to do is bring a community to people so they can check in once a month. We'll do master classes, drop recipe ideas, ways to stay on track, food prep, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that will be a great way for high performers to be able to check in, almost like a gym membership, but for your wellness.
That's incredible. There's such a need for that, and just making it easy and faster for people to be healthier and help themselves. And it's so great that it's coming from like your natural interest. Like you said, started as a hobby. I'm going to follow your
Mhm.
Instagram, by the way. Definitely. Um, and so, you're able to now do a job that you love, and like
Mhm.
you worked very hard in corporate, and we worked together. I've seen it. But now just having that freedom to build on something that you think is so important. And what you were saying, like, it's insane how most people just don't know. I mean, our system is unfortunately set up to not make it easy for people to be healthier. And well, I'm in the US and you're still in the UK, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes. So especially in the US, I would say. And
Mm,
like like you're saying, if someone is intolerant, that can affect so many different parts of your body. You would have connected that. So it's just interesting how connected different parts of your body are, and how
mhm,
one little change can be a game changer for someone on a daily basis.
mhm,
So I'm really interested in that as well.
mhm,
Um, yeah. So, for people that are just, going about their daily life, and they're working as we all have to work, and they feel that slump in the afternoon, because you talk about that. And so, do you have any just like quick tips for someone that is starting to get signs like that, where they're feeling the fatigue or brain fog, and how can they recognize that, and what can they do to improve it?
So um, I would immediately look at, so think about each meal has to be balanced. And so that needs to be the right amount of protein, fat, and carbohydrate for the individual. So you need to know your macronutrients, which is about 2 grams of protein per kilogram of weight per person for the protein amount. And then fat and carbs would depend on the individual person. Um, so you want to make sure you're having that, because from that your body is able to break that down into vitamins and minerals that it needs. Obviously, they're very important. And then focusing every day, and what the main thing, and I tell people this all the time, is you need to prioritize protein for your breakfast.
Mhm.
Oats are okay if you're gonna make it balanced. So you're gonna make sure you're having protein and fat with the oats. But a better breakfast would be protein. So a meat sauce, fish sauce, not fish sauce, but a sauce and fish. Um, and then you want to, if possible, try not to drink your coffee on an empty stomach. So
Mhm.
the reason I say this is because we want to try and balance our blood sugars. And I've seen so much about blood sugar online and people panicking about it and worrying about it. But really, what you just need to do is when you balance your blood sugars, you're balancing your hormones, and then you're creating a safe space for your body to do exactly what it needs to do, right? So,
Mhm.
um, when when we wake up in the morning, we get a spike of cortisol, which is another term that people worry about. They're like, "Oh, I've got
Yeah.
high cortisol," but we need cortisol. It keeps us alive. So cortisol, you get a spike in the morning, which is to wake you up, and then it's very important that that happens. It's important that you then balance your hormones by eating a balanced meal because that's what's going to stop. If you then, sorry, let me start again. So if you then went and had a high carbohydrate meal, your blood sugar is going to spike even more. So we have your blood sugar spike with the cortisol, right? And then insulin to bring it down. And if you then, I call it the blood sugar roller coaster. So if you then have, it starts coming back down again, which is the insulin's job. And if you go and have like a high carb breakfast, it's going to shoot it back up again. And then you're going to come back down and then you're going to feel that slump. So you mentioned the slump, it's on like a really long way around it. So you're going to feel that slump when the blood sugar drops again. And so you're naturally going to go for, or you're going to have that carb craving. Whereas if you didn't have that carby breakfast and you had a protein, a balanced meal,
Hmm.
your blood sugars are going to be more like this rather than up, down, up, down, up, down. So
Yes.
what that does is reduces the craving and then it reduces the slumps as well. So then while you're at work, you're not feeling so up and down because when the blood sugar spikes and then it drops again, that's when you're getting that like, oh, feeling tired, or I
Yeah.
need another coffee, or I need a sugary treat.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, and then that's throughout the day, right? So you just want to really make sure you're balancing each meal, and that means just not having a very carb heavy meal, and always making sure you're pairing it with something. So protein and carb or fat and carb to
Yes.
help offset that.
Yeah, that is great advice. Thank you. And I try to keep that in mind as well, especially for breakfast and starting the day. And I'm just like, I got flashbacks to when we were at Continuum and there was loads of food, at least in the
Pizza
Boston office.
Friday.
Yes, pizza Fridays. And, people would just, I think oftentimes at work, people grab a donut and then
Hmm.
they feel the slump, of course. And oftentimes it's like, oh, I got to watch my weight. I don't want to eat a donut, but it's actually like affecting how you feel and how
Hmm.
your body is functioning throughout the day and your energy and your hormones and all of that. So,
Hmm.
you said this earlier, it's not just about, watching your pounds, it's about um, overall feeling well and feeling like you can actually function in an effective way without forcing it with all the overloads of sugar and chemicals and caffeine and all of that. Uh,
Hmm.
and
I
s
always say, sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I always say we should count the chemicals, not the calories. So I would
Yeah,
be more
that's good.
concerned about the amount of chemicals that you're eating over the calories, as long as because if you're not eating a diet full of ultra processed food, sugar, all of those things, then your calories, it doesn't matter really what you're eating because your body can burn it. It's using everything it needs and it uses it as it should rather than
Mhm.
storing it as fat.
Yeah, just the amounts of processed food. It's just so accessible and people just think that's normal and healthy. Like I talked about my
Mm-hmm.
mom and my dad actually passed as well. And,
Oh,
you know,
I'm really
they,
sorry to hear
thank
that.
you. He had diabetes. So I would actually help him manage that sometimes. And I'd call him and he'd say, I was ask what did you have for lunch? And he's like, oh, I had something healthy. And I said, well, what? He's like, well, I'm at Taco Bell with your uncle. And I'm like, okay. He's like, there's vegetables. And I just feel like a lot of people, like, the older generations just think
Mhm.
like, oh, I had salad and it's like covered in the thick dressing. And, there's people think like healthy is one thing, but you talked about like eating more organically if you can and
Mhm.
watch it counting the chemicals. And we just, especially, I think older generations just weren't brought up that way and taught that. And it's just, yeah. And I think like I try to eat organic and everything is so expensive now, it's often hard to have access to that. So, what would you say to someone who is trying to, you know, eat well on a budget and just keep it simple, but, be as full and energized as possible.
Yeah, so, it's really interesting you say that because I was talking to someone earlier, a new stat had come out, and I don't know if this is in the US, but in the UK, they're saying that to eat healthy food, so that's just healthy food, not organic, healthy food is double the price of, ultra-processed food.
Yeah.
So the gap is just getting wider and wider. And, I was thinking about the things that I would do on a budget, um, and probably the main things are if you're trying to stay away from, pesticides and you want to go organic, there's a list that gets, released every year. So again, this is in the UK, and I don't know who the equivalent would be, but there are charities that release lists, and they let you know what the most saturated fruit and veg is with
Mhm.
pesticides. So then you can shop smarter. So, for example, and this is typical for anywhere, berries, um, berries and fruit are probably the most saturated. So things like strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, you probably would want to try and get organic. But there
Yeah.
are things that you can eat. So basically, this list helps you shop smarter, so it makes it cheaper. And then um, thinking about meat, of course, organic grass-fed beef, wild caught fish are the best. But if you're just trying to be healthier, I think trying to just go for whole food, um, and reducing the ultra processed where possible and sugar where possible.
Yes.
And I think if you just, and I don't know if you've tried it, but you give up sugar. So I've done 30 days, I've done longer before. And when you give up sugar and then you start eating fruit, you can't believe how sweet and delicious the fruit really is. And
Yes.
then you realize how you're like, oh, that's horrible that
I've
this
done
one.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
It's It'll jolt you when you haven't had, like, the super sugary frosting, like, on a cake and you just have had fruits and more natural sugars, and then you
Mhm.
take a bite and it's like, "Whoa, this is a bit too much." I'll just have a couple bites and stop because it's
Mhm.
just crazy how you don't even
And
realize it.
the things in, so um, corn syrup or glucose syrup or any of the sugars that you see on the back of the packet, we physically don't have the DNA to metabolize that. So as soon as you eat that, it's stored as fat.
Mm,
So there's no way of our body removing it or using it. So it just gets stored as fat. So that's probably one of the quickest ways to strip any additional weight you have is remove the sugars, the ultra processed foods. So I just
yeah,
think, yeah, whole foods, focus on whole food, cooking from scratch where you can,
yep,
um, and just making small swaps every so often. So you're not trying to do it all in one. And like seed oils and things like that, just try and slowly replace them. Because I think if you try and do it all at once, it's almost impossible, and you'll break the bank for a start, and
yep,
then you'll lose it, and it will just be a waste. So I think it's like small stackable habits that you can just build on.
mhm. Really, really good advice. Yes, I think that sounds very doable, and I didn't even realize that your body can't physically process all of that sugar and it's just immediately becomes fat. And it's like, we could, our collective society could probably shed a lot of pounds if we weren't as addicted to sugar. And unfortunately, it
Mhm.
is addictive, right? And that's
Yeah.
why a lot of folks are obese.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, thank you for that kind of like advice and walkthrough of how to and not doing it all at once, I think, too, is so it's not overwhelming. And like you were saying, people will just say, I don't have the time for that. I'm busy. I'm going to throw something in the microwave or, get fast food. And just when you prioritize, I think what you're kind of mentioning is that when you are able to prioritize it and take the steps over time to make it easier for you and your family, then it's not as time consuming as you may think. Um,
Mm.
And it's great that you actually have set up a program to make it even more accessible and simple. So that's great. And I'm just kind of curious when you started doing, well, first of all, when you got more into nutrition yourself after you had your daughter, and then you started doing this for work, and you clearly have a lot of your own lifestyle habits you've developed since then. How has that helped you with your focus? And you've clearly accomplished a lot since then. So, just personally, how has it helped with your family life and work and everything?
I would say I so the mental clarity for me is one of the best things, and you'll know as a mum, you have 1,000 things going through your mind all of the time, on
Yes.
top of the work, the household, the bills, all of the things you've got to think
Yes.
of. So just having the brain power to manage all of those things has been game changing for me. I also gave up drinking alcohol, and that was a massive, massive thing for me because
Nice.
I didn't realize how little boundaries I had
Mm.
when I was drinking. I just was getting through the week, and I wasn't a massive drinker. Once I had my daughter, like the party life finished.
Yeah.
I would still have on a Friday, we'd maybe go for dinner and have a couple of glasses of wine, or you know what it's like, or you have a night off and you go out with friends.
Yep.
Um, I felt like every week was just rolling into one, and I didn't have the boundaries or um, the ability to stick to my dietary plan and the way I wanted to live my lifestyle was so much harder when I was drinking. And I know a lot of people like to drink. I'm not suggesting everyone gives up alcohol,
Yeah.
um, but it's a big that for me was a really big one. So
Hmm.
the brain fog has lifted and the energy, I've got so much more energy. And when I wake up in the morning, I can just get out of bed and get going. Whereas before I'd just be like, oh no, oh no. Of
Yeah.
course, I do still do that sometimes. I'm not a superhuman. But it's just all these little things and you don't realise until you're in it. And then when I eat something or when I go through a phase of not being as good as I like to be, I can just feel the oh,
The
you
difference. Yeah.
know, that yeah, the energy is really off. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible that you've accomplished all of that and it seems like, I mean, you look great and it seems like you feel really good. And um I feel like I do most of those things. I drink once in a while, but for the kind of mental clarity, I feel like maybe I can have better balanced meals sometimes. So maybe we'll have to chat about that because the mental clarity for a mom, especially, like you were saying, there's just so much that you're thinking of at a given second in the day that I often feel like I can't even shut my brain off some nights because it's just
Mhm.
going so fast. So when nutrition can actually help you with that and relax you a bit more, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, cool. And so, um, like I said, I definitely want to follow your Instagram and learn more. It seems like you actively are sharing tips. So, for anyone that wants to follow along and learn more, what is your handle or where else could they find you just to keep up with these types of tips and advice?
So at it's Esther Louise. So it's Esther Louise, which is my middle name. And then I just on there share loads of I try and share my perspective on things and tips on things you can do, meal ideas, and especially for family. So food that I give my children,
Nice.
dinners and that sort of thing. Yeah. So
Oh, that's great
recipe
for
ideas.
families too to follow along.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I like to end with a question related to this show called Get Real. So, what would you say is something you've had to get more real with yourself about when it comes to health and success?
I would say that you can't do it all, and um, actually slowing down and doing less will end with uh, better results. So, for example, doing 5 days in the gym, going on a crazy diet plan, that's probably not going to help you. You actually need to slow it down, go for some walks, maybe drop the agenda for a couple of days a week, focus on your nutrition, but also really getting your mind to a good place because it's so hard to heal anything if you haven't got the right mindset. So I think,
Mhm.
yeah, trying not to get too toxically into it and just having that balance is so important.
Yeah, not overdoing it, not forcing it,
Mhm.
not being obsessive, just
Yeah.
taking it slower, having patience. Very, very good
Mhm.
advice. Because I personally sometimes feel like I wanna do it all and maybe not 5 days in the gym, but just, like, accomplish a lot and
Mhm.
just to say, "I'm done for the day, I did enough, I'm gonna slow down and be quiet and take a walk." That's
Mhm.
huge for anyone.
Mhm.
So really good advice. Well, thank you so much. It was just really good to catch up with you and learn about what you're
Thank
up to
you.
now. And we're both moms just trying to do our best in the world and help people. So thank you for chatting. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Okay, take care. Bye.